A lot of us are familiar with the ministry that Bill Bright founded years ago called Campus Crusade for Christ. In fact, Bill Bright, along with his wife, has guested more than once on 100 Huntley Street in years past. Bill, of course, has gone on to be with the Lord. But his ministry continues throughout the entire world. What's interesting is that right here in Canada, Campus Crusade is going very strong, but under a different name. It's called Power to Change. And the president of Power to Change, Leonard Buhler, is with us from Langley, BC, and we've got a great opportunity to get up to date and up to speed on the former Campus Crusade for Christ, current Power to Change ministry. Welcome, Leonard.
It's good to be here.
It's great to have you with us. I've been very aware of Campus Crusade and now Power to Change for many, many years. Back when Power to Change was first introduced to Canada as a program of Campus Crusade, I chaired the Power to Change campaign on the Lower Mainland when I was pastoring Broadway Church, and spent a lot of time with the staff there and was so impressed in that Langley office with the focus of the campus people. But why the name change? Why Power to Change now rather than Campus Crusade?
Well, when I became the president, one of the first things we thought about was, are we relevant today? And we realized our name was too narrow in focus. First of all, we were way more than campus ministry. We have Athletes in Action, Christian Embassy, Leader Impact Group, Global Aid Network. So we have a lot of divisions, and the campus name didn't reflect who we were. And then also the word crusade, of course, was not a really good word for this time in our culture and the season of the world. Yeah. And so we really felt we needed a name change that reflected all that we were. And so we began the process of looking for a name. So in that process, we did all kinds of surveys, 7,000 people, 3,000 people. Right. And one day a young Christian was in my home. He was maybe a Christian for 6 months. He was from Hollywood, and I was just telling him all the things we've done. And so I was telling him about Power to Change, just like you led it in the Lower Mainland. Debbie and I led it in Manitoba. And he says, wow, I really like the Power to Change name. And he says, what exactly is Power to Change about, the campaigns? And I said, well, it was about mobilizing the church to share their faith. And he says, so he says, everybody in Canada would recognize Power to Change? And I said, pretty much. Well, he says, you can't afford a different name. He says, why don't you call yourself Power to Change? And so that began the journey of saying, well, could we call ourselves Power to Change? And then we put, of course, the logo, the cross over the world, beside the word Power to Change. So for the Christian, it gives a great message. Jesus is the power to change. And it's based off of John chapter 14, where Jesus says, I am in the Father is in me, I am in you. So Christ in you is the power to change the world. And so we really want to help people release the power that's within them to change the world. And so for the Christian, it's a great message. And for the non-Christian, it really begs a great question, Power to Change the world.
Yeah, really. Now, did you get any resistance from the international office in the U.S. About changing the name?
No, they were very supportive of it. In different parts of the world, Campus Crusade is called different things.
Oh, it is?
And in fact, they're looking at a name change right now for the entire world organization. And so, no, they were very supportive.
Well, when you mention all of the sort of the comprehensive nature of the programs of the former Campus Crusade, I can certainly understand why you would consider a new brand, a new signature. Tell me about Athletes in Action, for instance. A lot of our viewers have connected with Athletes in Action directly and indirectly, but tell us about that.
Yeah, great. Athletes in Action, of course, we're involved in a number of different things, like the soccer camps and sport camps. We do a lot of international, taking teams, Canadian teams, Christians, playing in international countries as kind of friendship matches, but then we share Christ in every one of them. So we've got about 5 different strategies. One, of course, is working with the pro athletes, and as you'll know now, the Grey Cup coming up, we work with a lot of the football players, and we'll host the Grey Cup breakfast and get the players to talk about their faith journey. In fact, a lot of the players will be going to the high schools in Edmonton prior to the game and talking about their lives. And so Athletes in Action is involved very much through the world of sport.
It's really quite remarkable how many committed believers there are in pro sport. And it's just, I've always wondered about this. Maybe you could tell me, maybe you can't. It seems to me that there's a higher percentage of believers in pro football than any of the other sports. And I'm wondering if it's related to the fact that they're really risking their lives when they're out there on the field.
I don't know about risk, but there's definitely a good percentage of Christians in the football arena. And, I like to think it's part of the work that Athletes in Action has done with the chaplaincies on the pro teams.
Yeah, so you have a chaplain. Your organization worked for years, maybe still does, with Paul Henderson.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and Paul's had a huge impact, been on the program several times, and he's a Canadian icon and has a terrific ministry. What about some of your other ministries? You got Athletes in Action. What else do you have?
Well, let's talk about Paul Henderson. He
Sure.
he has led the Leader Impact Group, reaching business leaders.
Right.
Nathan Hildebrand has taken that over as Paul has been retiring, and as you know, Paul has cancer now.
Yeah.
And so his legacy really is that we're starting Leader Impact Group in I think we're in 17 cities in Canada right now. And what we're trying to do is mobilize business leaders to talk about their faith. So we train them on how to talk about it professionally. So we'll take their expertise, let's say in exchange or the oil field or the building industry. In fact, we're hosting an outreach in Winnipeg on November 25th where the builder of the Olympic Village will talk about his journey as a Christian building the Olympic Village. And as you know, there was a lot of controversy around the finances and the economics changes. And then halfway through it, he had a brain aneurysm and barely came out with his life. So he'll be sharing his testimony in the Convention Center in Winnipeg on November 25th. And so Leader Impact Group takes business leaders like that and gives them the opportunity, just like we would in sport, to use their influence to talk about Christ. But we do the forums where a business leader will talk about his faith, and then we have discovery groups where a business leader can bring people who don't know Christ yet to learn more about a more holistic lifestyle. And Paul Henderson, of course, founded the discovery groups, and now we're taking them across Canada, and actually other parts of the world are replicating what we're doing.
A few months ago, I had Josh McDowell on the program for a whole week. You may recall him being on 100 Huntley Street. But his relationship, again, with your organization has been for his whole life, his whole career. I was surprised actually to hear he still sees himself as a staffer in the States, still called Campus Crusade for Christ. But he obviously has a very high regard for the work and the ministry. Did you ever personally meet with Bill Bright?
No, I didn't. I came on just as he was dying, and I started right after his death. Really.
You know, I had lunch with him one day when he was beginning to lose his lung capacity, and he actually had a little oxygen machine with him, but that wasn't stopping him. And all he wanted to talk about what was coming next. You know, he was such a visionary. And someone told me, I don't know how, the accuracy of the report, but that his last year, he was pretty much bedridden, I think he wrote a couple of books and laid the groundwork for several more ministries. Yeah. I mean, he was a remarkable guy.
Yeah. He really was, and one of the things he really focused on was he would just phone everybody and remember everybody's name, and he'd phone them and encourage them in their faith. And I think he was instrumental in inspiring so many people to be engaged in a life of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this, and then I want to talk about you. I've got a few things here to show our viewers. This is called Helping You Reach Your World, put out by Power to Change. It's called a Faith Adventure Guide. Now, what is this?
Well, when we changed the name, we wanted to change our approach to evangelism and kind of rethink about everything in Power to Change now. And so one of the things we wanted to change was our culture. And so we wanted it really to be about helping the church. Instead of joining Power to Change or our Power to Change campaign, can we help a church start a campaign in their community? Can we help you reach your world? And so it really was a more servant attitude and approach. And then the Faith Adventure Guide that you have here is really all of the tools, all the strategies we have that people can engage in. So if they want to reach the business world around them or the sport world or the family world, this is just a guide for how they can engage. So they can engage at multiple levels. One, they can just bring a friend who doesn't know Jesus to one of our events, or they can actually host an event or a strategy and bring a lot of Christian people to bring their non-Christian friends. And so it really allows them to engage at quite a number of levels, a really intense level or just a moderate level of just bringing simply a non-Christian friend to an event.
Yeah, I'm going through this and I'm seeing all the various programs you have. It really is remarkable. I'm interested in your Global Aid Network, these life teams.
Yeah, Global Aid Network is our humanitarian wing. We respond, of course, like to Haiti. We've got a lot of work going on in Haiti with medical clinics, and so we invite doctors and nurses to join us on trips and do the triage sort of treatment. and run the medical clinics. And then, of course, we have ongoing work in Africa. Right now we're in Togo, Benin, Tanzania, and Sudan drilling water wells. And so we've got a really nice program of, we've imported the machines into there. We've got complete teams of people drilling water wells, and we show the Jesus film and plant churches in these villages. And you know, one village, they were saying they drilled a water well, and you know, it was designed for kind of 1,000 people. And it's just you know, it's really simple. We put a pipe in the ground, you know, 200 feet, 400 feet, wherever the aquifers are, and we put a big heavy-duty hand pump up for them to grab the water. But in the one village, they were saying like there's 4,000 people getting water from this one well. You know, in the past they had to walk long distances for water, and here it's just simply people were lined up. They got pictures with all these barrels, empty barrels or containers that these women carry back to their houses. And so from like 6 in the morning at sunrise, this pump starts. You know, they're pumping it, and right till dark. And they're lined up just to get the water. And you know, it really opens the door for us to communicate Christ a more holistically, right? You give them water, and they say, well, what else do you offer, right? And it just opens the door from us being intrusive in their society to really lending a hand and being, I think people are just so much more open to us coming and sharing Christ with them. And